Hey everybody, it's Aldo Gandhi, and I just want to let you know really quickly that our swag shop is reopened. DeepDishTees.com is where you go, and that's tees with T-E-E-S. Clever name, guys. They're the new home of our merchandise. You can get t-shirts, you can get caps, you can get coffee mugs, you can get hoodies, you can get all sorts of good stuff, and you'll help out the bar room with the purchase. So head over to DeepDishTees.com.
You're listening to the Ballroom Network. The following program is intended for all audiences. Welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen Podcast with your hosts, Joe Mandel, Steven Zim Zimmerman, Vinny Parisi, and Chris Gonzalez. We're bringing you the White Sox coverage you need from the perspective of true Southsiders. Grab your Kaminsky dog with an ice-cold beer and meet us in section 155. Everyone get on your feet for your 2021 South Burbs Hitmen.
That ball hit deep. Way back. You can put it on the board. Yes. Jimenez in the air. Left field. He's your hero tonight. Thanks, Cubs.
Over the head of Jenks. Uribe charges, throws, out! And the White Sox have won the World Series.
Alexei! Yes! 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 History! A perfect game by Mark Burley, and what an unbelievable play by Dwayne White.
First pitch starts now.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the South Burbs Hitmen Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mandel, and I'm joined by my White Sox brother-in-arms. That's Vinny Parisi, and our other brother, Chris Gonzalez, is going to be joining us in a little bit. Shout out to our buddy Steven Zim Zimmerman, who can't join us tonight, but he'll be back next week. Vinny, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Did you almost call him Ryan Zimmerman, like Washington Nationals Ryan Zimmerman?
I did. I was just thinking baseball in the back of my head, and that's I messed up.
Whenever someone has baseball on their head that much, I love it.
Thank you. It's always in my brain. You can never escape baseball. So Vinny's here, and then now we have Zagonzo here. So life is good. We're going to talk some White Sox baseball. It was a rough week. We'll just leave it at that quickly. Before we bring on our guest, who's patiently waiting in the wings, and we're excited to have him. The three of us got to go to opening day 2.0 on Friday, full capacity at guaranteed rate. It was absolutely incredible. Vinny, I'll let you go first. How was the atmosphere for you, man?
Yeah, it was awesome. It was almost like you forgot for 15 months what it was like to be at a game with that many people and just be around that many people at one time. Like, it's one thing to go to the bar for the first time or hit a restaurant, for the first time once everything started to reopen again. But hitting a ball game that was just 100% capacity, it was awesome. So, and we got to hang out a little bit, shoot a couple promos, drink some beers. It was good times.
It was great times, man. I had a blast as well, drinking with you guys. Gonzo, you're back in action. How was opening day 2.0?
I mean, the atmosphere was electric. I enjoyed, the brews that we had all together, the food, and heck, we even got some live pitching and got our arms almost torn. With our rotator cuffs were probably pretty sore going into that first inning. But other than that, the game itself was pretty shitty. We can't lie about that. But I can't lie that, after the game, the fireworks were even better, since we last seen fireworks at US, or the Guaranteed Rate Field, I should say. And then we stopped off at 35th Street Hots right after and got some more food. So all together, great time with the boys. Can't complain. And, I'd love to do some more, but I know I'll be leaving shortly, and Zim will be joining you guys in a month here and out, I should say.
Yeah. Well, lots to talk about. Heck of a week, heck of a opening day 2.0. Rough week for the White Sox. So we do have our guest here we're going to bring on, and we're going to talk about this week that was with the Sox. We are joined by our guest here. Let me get him in the main frame here. We're joined by Jason Conander. Of course, you know him here on the network. He's a part of the Sportscaster and her son. You guys know him as the son of Peggy Kaczynski, but he also writes for Southside Sox and covers the White Sox. Loves Chicago sports. Jason, how you doing, man?
I'm doing awesome. Thank y'all for having me on. Looking forward to talking some White Sox baseball. How are y'all doing?
We're doing good, man. We're all doing a little bit better than this White Sox club. And I think we could all agree it was probably good we got a rain out today to get this funk out of our system. Am I right?
Absolutely. Typically when the games get rained out, I'm so upset because I'm like, I wake up every morning, win or lose, I'm looking forward because it's just a new day. And typically when a game gets rained out, it's like it's worse than losing almost for me because I just enjoy watching the team play. And today was totally different because today they really, really, really needed it. And I was almost relieved to see that the game was postponed in the worst way possible. But they needed this one a lot.
Yes, they certainly did. And Jason, as I mentioned, our viewers know you from the Sportscaster and her son. You're the son of Peggy Kaczynski, but you're doing a lot of great work now. And you just announced the other day you're going to be a part of Southside Sox. Talk a little bit about your White Sox fandom and the passion that you have for Chicago sports, specifically on the South Side.
Yeah, people always ask me why I'm a White Sox fan, and I think the best answer I have is I really don't know. For about fourth grade, I decided that I was ready to get into sports, and as good as I remember it, I flipped on my TV, was looking for the first Major League Baseball game because I just wanted to watch it, and the first one that came up was White Sox Indians. It was the second series of the 2012 season, and I put it on, watched it, loved it, and I've been a diehard fan of the team ever since. Anytime I can possibly watch a game, whether I'm at home, in school, at work, with my girlfriend, with my friends, anytime I have my phone and a ball is being thrown, I'm probably watching the game. So nice. Ever since then, I've just kind of hit the ground running, and the White Sox are my number one team for everything. And not much more to be said. I'm a diehard fan, always have been, always will be.
Hey man, it's a beautiful thing. You're joining a group of diehards right here, and you're going to give me a good answer to this one. To put it lightly, this team is in a bit of a funk right now, right?
Oh yeah.
So, in your opinion, what's wrong with the team, and how can they fix it?
Well, there's a lot. First and foremost, the offense has just completely stopped producing, which I think we had coming. The series before the Tampa series, you could see that the bats were starting to slow down a little bit in that third game, in particular when Mendick made the error in the eighth inning that led to the 2 runs scoring and the game being tied. Team just looked sloppy, whether it be at the plate, in the field. The relief pitching was exceptionally bad compared to the consistency that it's had at times this season. And I think that it starts with the hitting. You need your big dogs to hit. And that means Tim Anderson, Yohan Moncada, and Jose Abreu need to be contributing night in and night out. And the way the White Sox are rolling, they've been lucky to have one guy be on his game each night. So that's been the biggest problem, in my opinion. Secondly, the guys who were producing a little bit more than they should have been, or in the case of Yermin Mercedes, like galaxies more than they should have been, have just came back down to earth. Larry Garcia had a pretty good stretch, but he's back to being Larry Garcia. Yermin Mercedes had 2 1-for-30 slumps, which were pretty frustrating, but he seemed to have picked things up a little bit in game 2 yesterday, which is good. So it's been top to bottom. The lineup has just not picked it up, and the starting pitching has been where it has been for the most part of the season. Lance Lynn is typically bad in June, and he hasn't been bad this June, but he hasn't been the Lance Lynn we had for the first 2 months. Really the only constant on this team actually has been Carlos Rodon, with Hendricks having a blown save yesterday. So it's been all around like pretty much like the list of things that could have went wrong for the White Sox, or that we were waiting to go wrong or go less good for that matter, have all accumulated at the same time, and at a pretty tough time because they're hitting a really easy stretch of the schedule. But yeah, it's really been rotation. line up first, and then just really the overall sloppiness. The back end of the bullpen hasn't been nearly as sharp. Garrett Crochet is way, way, way off. Completely different pitcher than he was his first 2 months. And there really is no one thing that will fix this slump. You just kind of hope they regain the form that they had 3-4 weeks ago.
For sure.
Yeah. After a certain point, you imagine they have to turn it around. And I got to ask you, there's a lot of trade talk going around right now as well. So you tweeted out today that there's no chance the Sox trade Zach Collins. And I agree with you, but why do you think that?
Well, looking at it from a 2021 standpoint, if you were to trade Zach Collins, the White Sox would be without a backup catcher. Yermin Mercedes is no longer a catcher. If he was a catcher, he would have been behind the plate at times this year. So, number one, if you trade Collins, you don't have a backup catcher. Number two, and the thing that really puzzles me with the way that the White Sox have brought Collins up is he's a young hitter. He, as a catcher, you don't expect him to be hitting 280 with 30 bombs. But when a guy's only in the lineup twice a week or once every 4 days, somebody that young is not going to be able to get into a rhythm. So what that tells me is the White Sox are still waiting. Zach Collins hasn't really even had his audition yet. On top of it I heard last night, and it became public knowledge today when John Heyman was on MLB Network, that the Diamondbacks have upped their trade at the asking price for Eduardo Escobar to Jake Berger, Zach Collins. And, besides all the jokes on Twitter, Zach Collins is absolutely untouchable. Absolutely untouchable, especially with Grandal's got, one more year on his contract. Where things stand right now, Collins is the catcher of the future. Whether you like it or not, that's the way things are shaping up. So unless the White Sox somehow get a catcher back, they don't have any veterans in the minors. Jonathan Lucroy was cut during spring training, so there is no third option at catcher. So not necessarily by default, because I think Collins would be a pretty tough guy to part with, at least for the front office, even if James McCann, say, we're still on the team. But no, Zach Collins isn't going anywhere. You can always say he'll be gone in the right deal, but with the way that the market's looking right now and the fact that there hasn't been a move yet and the White Sox have been throwing so many darts at the board, I would be beyond surprised if Zach Collins is traded.
I agree with you, man. They don't have any other options. That's kind of, unless they get a catcher in the trade, but I doubt that's going to happen. But I'm going to go ahead and toss you over to my co-host, Chris Gonzalez. Gonzo, why don't you take it away, brother?
Thanks, Joe. Jason, thanks again for taking time and to join us. And so what's your thoughts on the talents of Cease, Kopech, and Crochet? And also, would you deal any of them, or are you going to keep the three of them at the deadline here if you were Han?
Yeah, so to answer the question about if I would deal them, in order of who I would be the most to least hesitant to deal, it would go Kopech, Cease, and then Crochet. I think that Garrett Crochet could certainly be gone, not just in the right deal, but honestly in any deal, because you look 2-3 years down the line, and that's a guy where they say he's going to be a starter, but they haven't brought him along as a starter or even as somebody who's preparing to be a starter, because he's only had, I believe, one outing of more than one inning. So I could see Crochet going. As for Cease, Dylan Cease has really, really surprised me this season in a really good way. I think we can all agree his first 2 seasons, the stuff was there at times, but the execution certainly wasn't. His fastball was very flat his first 2 seasons. His breaking stuff, he wasn't mixing well. And this season, he's not all the way there, but we're seeing a really, really good jump from him. And the velo's up. It always has been up. He's got a great arm. The breaking pitches, he's working ahead with the curveball. A couple starts back, I can't recall who it was against, but I noticed that Dylan Cease was throwing so many more first pitch curveballs and throwing the hitters completely off balance, which is exactly what he needs to do. But a couple of years back, the 98-mile-per-hour fastball as a starter would be something that would be striking out 2 guys an inning. But in today's baseball, the fact of the matter is it's just not going to be good enough. And the White Sox don't want Dylan Cease to be good enough. They want Dylan Cease to be the top of the rotation arm that he was touted to be. And this season, he's certainly grown to that. As for Kopech, Michael Kopech needs to be untouchable in any single trade talk because
yes,
you look at the ERA his rookie season, but that was from the one really bad start when he was hurt. And this season, he almost hasn't missed a beat at all. And the more innings he gets under his belt, obviously they're limiting the innings and the pitches this year. But by next year, Kopech's going to be in the rotation because the odds of the White Sox retaining both Rodon and Lynn, who you could argue are 1 and 2 for the American League Cy Young Award, are so low. Kopech will be in the rotation next year. And I don't really think that there's any player on the trade market, certainly not Trevor Story. Kopech wouldn't be brought up in Adam Frazier trade talks, but I don't think that there is any one player that it is remotely reasonable to be traded to the White Sox that Kopech would be worth parting with Kopech for. Absolutely not. Absolutely, absolutely not. So if I had to give up one, it'd be Crochet. I'd love for them to keep all three because all three are just too hard throwing, elite of stuff, high ceilings. None of the three have even come close to reaching their full potential. So I'd love to keep all three around, but if I had to give it one, like I said, it'd be Crochet.
I'm right on board with you. In fact, I would put potential-wise, I'd put Crochet in front of Cease and Kopech. I mean, this is a kid that right out of the draft last year, next thing you know, he's pitching the postseason. And Kopech, it took 2 years to get to this point. And heck, if you were to ask us the same question in the offseason, we'd probably be trading him in deals, because we had no clue this was coming.
And really quick, what I'll say about Crochet is the one thing that kind of scares me away from him is you look at the track record. And Cease has a great track record. Kopech has a great track record. Crochet, not so much. And looking back to the draft last year, the Crochet pick wasn't necessarily a reach, but it was certainly a surprise to some people because he had worked as a starter and his ERA was sky high. He looked very, very good in 2020 in the couple games he pitched before the season was scratched. But the thing that kind of scares me with Crochet is like this is a guy that is and can also potentially be a good thing is this is a guy who's just now starting to put up good numbers. And I don't think it's a fluke because the stuff is so amazing when his arm slot is there. But it's all about repetition, and you can almost tell that he's a guy that just hasn't thrown the ball as much as everyone else. And maybe that's why he was throwing so hard last year because he has so much mileage on his arm, or so little mileage on his arm. But I think that there are little things we see against Minnesota a couple weeks back. He walked back-to-back batters on 8 pitches. Ethan Katz came out, refined the arm angle, and next thing you know, he strikes out the next 2 guys on 7 pitches. So I just think the thing with Crochet that scares me is the lack of a track record, but also could potentially be a good thing because we don't really know how good or how, I guess, not so good this guy's going to be for a couple more years.
No, I absolutely agree with what you just said there. It was a very valid point. Now, who shall we resign this offseason between Giolito, Lynn, and Rodon? And don't be afraid to give me some combos here, but I just want to see what your thoughts are, going forward on these extensions possibly.
You're getting tricky there, Gonzo. I like it.
Well, Giolito, Lynn, and Rodon. I would say I would love for Lance Lynn to stick around. I think that the way the White Sox fans have taken in Lance Lynn has been so cool. He's just a guy, like, you look at him and he looks like he's from Bridgeport almost. Like, he looks like a South Sider.
He does.
He's a guy he's a great culture guy. He really doesn't care at all what people think, what the umps think, what the fans think, what the other team thinks. He's just going to go out. He's going to throw baseball as hard as he can, and he's going to let you hear about it. And I think that is the type of guy that the White Sox need to keep around as long as possible. So I would say number one priority needs to be locking up Lance Lynn. The age is a little bit of a concern, but every winning team, every World Series winning team, you look with the Cubs. I hate drawing parallels between 2016 Cubs and this year's White Sox, but the Cubs did have their veteran anchor, John Lester, who every 5th day brought his best stuff, pitched 6 innings, gave them a shot to win. And that's who Lance Lynn can be for the White Sox. So besides the amazing ERA, the great stuff, like I said, the great image, he needs to be priority number one. as for Rodon has been the best pitcher on the team this year. He's been better than Lynn. He's been more consistent. Every time he takes the ball, there's a chance you're going to witness a no-hitter, as we saw against Cleveland. And I would love to bring back Carlos Rodon, but it has to be at the right price. And given the fact that he's a Scott Boras client, he obviously was non-tendered and was brought back on a one-year deal. This is a guy that's going to be looking to get paid this winter. And there will be, as much as Carlos Rodon, I'm sure, as much as he loves Chicago, he's been here 7 years now. I don't think he'll be taking a hometown discount. So I was talking a couple weeks ago to some people, and they said that a good barometer for the type of contract that Rodon could get would be what Kevin Gausman got in San Francisco, because he was another guy, former top draft pick, injury concerns, velocity going up, going down, no clue. And then he has one good year, and he ended up picking up the qualifying offer, which there's no way Rodon will do. But I think that something in the range of 4 years and $80 million, 3 years and $6 million would be reasonable. Anything higher than that, I'd hesitate. Giolito has come along very well the past few weeks, past few starts. He's a guy that, just like the rest of the core, Tim Anderson, Luis Robert, Eloy Jimenez, he needs to be around here as long as he's bringing his best stuff. And he got off to a slow start, as he tends to do, and now he's starting to get it back together. And you can't possibly forget about the near no-hitter in Oakland, game 1 of the postseason. He's a guy who has begun to show a tendency to bring his best stuff when the lights are shining the brightest, which is the type of guy that the White Sox need. And you can say that for most of the guys on the rosters, that they're the perfect fit. That's why this team's in first place. But I'd say Lynn needs to be the top priority. Giolito, there's a little less urgency. But as the White Sox have done the past few winters, they are looking to lock up their young guys, Robert, Jimenez, and I think that Giolito will be next, potentially Nick Madrigal as well. But I think the White Sox will, as for a prediction, I think that 2 of the 3 will be signed/extended. Whether that means they bring back Lynn Rodon, Lynn Giolito, Rodon and Giolito. I personally think it'll be Lynn Giolito, but I could see any possible outcome.
I actually agree with you on that. I actually agree with you on that, because I was going to say Gio and Lynn, but I mean, Giolito is just unfortunate lately. He's not getting run support when he's been putting together some really solid quality starts. But other than that, just to add on what you also said, I'm not sure if you caught it on the MLB Network this morning, but Mad Dog Russo was asked about the Cy Young candidates in the AL, and because Cole's performances have been dropping, he looked right over Carlos Rodon and Lance Lynn, and he's like, yeah, I don't really see any candidates for, AL Cy Young candidates, just because Cole is dropping. He's the obvious favorite. And I almost lost it, because he went to the NL and he's like, DeGrom is a solid candidate, but I don't see anyone catching up to him, maybe Gausman. But I'm just like, how do you miss him? Just look at the stats, my friend.
The Mad Dog hates the White Sox for some reason. I don't know why.
He hates them. It's just so funny that he said Gausman before. He didn't even care to mention Lynn or Rodon, but made probably the worst comment that I've heard in a long time that anybody could possibly catch Jacob DeGrom to win the Cy Young Award, or let's say MVP award in the National League. I just think that that's even more ridiculous than anything. Almost laughable.
So stupid.
Now, chat, please get your questions in to Jason. We'll be getting to them very shortly here. And now I'm going to give it over to Vinny. And Vinny, go ahead, take it away, my friend.
Yeah, and we actually we have a question in the chat that we wanted to bring up real quick. Someone asked about what your deal would be for Eduardo Escobar or Adam Frazier.
Okay. For Escobar, I certainly wouldn't give up Berger Collins, especially not Jake Berger, because if the Sox were to bring up Jake Berger today, I don't want to say he'd bring the same production as Escobar, but it'd be pretty counterproductive, especially given the fact that Escobar is a expiring contract. So what I would do is pretty much take anybody 10 through 20 in the farm system that is younger. And you look at the Diamondbacks, they're not going anywhere. Worst team in baseball, not even really close. Several years away from getting back into contention. I think that a couple guys that could interest them, Jose Rodriguez is hitting the absolute cover off the ball. in Double-A, but is another guy. Like, you look at these middle infielders, and the White Sox are set in the middle infield for the greater part of the next decade. So, any middle infielder in the organization, Laz Rivera, Jose Rodriguez, Brian Ramos is a third baseman in high A. He has a great walk to strikeout ratio. But again, anybody, and the White Sox do not have a good history of parting with young middle infielders. We all know how the James Shields trade went, but unfortunately, that's where I'd have to go, because that's the prototype that a team like Arizona will be looking for. That's the type of guy that the White Sox should be looking to give up. Anybody who cannot at all have any chance of helping the team this year should be on the trade block. So that's who I would give up for Escobar. Sounds like that's a little lower than what the Diamondbacks want now, but maybe in a month or so they'll come back down to earth. As for Adam Frazier, there's a big difference in what I would give up for Frazier and what Frazier is going to cost. I would be very, very hesitant to give up Jared Kelly for Adam Frazier's career year, but anybody other than Jared Kelly, I think, should be on the trade block. Andrew Dahlquist, Matthew Thompson, Mike Adolfo, and people love to throw Adolfo in these hypothetical trades, but truth be told, his value isn't like a typical top 10 prospect in a farm system because of his age. So what my deal to get Frazier would be, if I'm Rick Hahn, is I'm offering Thompson, Dahlquist, and then one of Ramos or Rodriguez, and then probably another low A arm in the farm system, somebody high velocity, but somebody that we can afford to part with. What I think is going to cost, though, is Jared Kelly, and then one of Thompson and Dahlquist, one of Rodriguez and Ramos, plus at least another sweetener. So there's a big discrepancy right now. Again, it's early. We're still about a month removed from the deadline, but there's a big difference between what I would give up, honestly, for either of those guys and what it's going to cost, just because nobody's set the market yet. And I don't think it'd be wise of the White Sox market, but now they're in a position where they almost have to. So I'm very interested to see what they do in that regard the next few weeks leading up to the All-Star break.
Yeah, and so all these guys that are on the trade, like rumor mill with the White Sox, they're all offensive players. And they could probably use another reliever, but you don't really see them like, oh, we need a starter really bad. None of that's really going on right now. But they actually could have help on the way without making a single trade. And obviously that comes in the form of guys like Eloy Jimenez and Luis Robert. I think Eloy is going to come back a little sooner than Robert, if Robert comes back at all. We know Madrigal's gone for the year, but do you think either of them joining the lineup when they're healthy, they can hit the ground running? Because personally, especially with Eloy, I believe he can, just because I think he's such a talented hitter. I'd like to know your perspective on when this guy joins the lineup. Is he going to go back to hitting 290 plus, 300, hitting all these home runs? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Ironically enough, I was thinking the same thing today about, like, a lot of people on Twitter especially are assuming that when Robert and Jimenez come back, you're going to get the same Eloy and Robert, the same Eloy and Robert that you always get. And at least for Robert, I'd be really cautious of that. A hip injury, I believe it was a hip injury, was anything lower body for somebody who counts on their speed as much as Robert, both out of the batter's box and in the field, is going to take a while to recover from. That's why I was kind of glad, actually, that Nick Madrigal, that the White Sox opted to go with the surgery for him, because if he loses his quickness, the half of the entire idea behind Nick Madrigal kind of goes down. So with Robert, that's why I was a little bit almost pessimistic when they announced that he was planning on returning this season, because the risk of re-injury is so high, especially with somebody like Robert who's going to go out and play his hardest every day. As for Jimenez, I think Eloy is going to hit the ground running, because with Robert, he started his season, was starting to get in a rhythm. He was hitting north of 300 when he got hurt, and now he's going to have to try to regain that form after a several-month layoff. As for Jimenez, Eloy's going to be prepared. He had spring training, but he hasn't faced major league regular season pitching yet. I think that he's going to get off to a really, really good start. Now, I have been a very, very big stickler on the White Sox need to add an outfielder, because I am part of the crowd that says I don't want Eloy Jimenez in the field, at least for the rest of this year, because He's young. He went up for a home run once, missed it, tore his shoulder. I have some horrible nightmares of him doing the exact same thing. So as long as
he's got ice skates
DHing,
on
and that's
out
really
there.
all he needs to focus on, I think he'll be fine. Robert, I'm a little bit more optimistic about, but talent is talent. And I think that by the time the playoffs come, both guys are going to be the same old Luis Robert and Eloy Jimenez that we're accustomed to.
Absolutely. And speaking of injuries, I mean, we saw Abreu take one to the knee the other day, and he went down, and you would have thought that he literally got shot. That's how hard he went down, and he was slamming his helmet into the dirt. Going into that, he seemed a little banged up in general. He had the thing where he slid into home plate funky, running into Hunter Dozier, trying to catch a pop fly. The umpire whipping a bat as his leg while he's trying to get it out of the way for a runner trying to score on a different play. It's been a painful year for him. The production hasn't been quite what we saw last year, but he is like a top 5 American League RBI guy. Do you think he can get extra hot as the rest of the season goes along? Because that's kind of needed.
Well, there's $1 million question. That is what I believe above any acquisition, anybody getting healthy. I think that is what's going to make or break this White Sox season, is if Jose Abreu can be the Jose Abreu that he was last year. And he doesn't even need to be that Jose Abreu, because I think we all know that if the season was 162 games last year, Abreu probably doesn't win MVP. Because ever since Jose has stepped foot in Chicago, we've known exactly what we're going to get. Every 2 weeks, he's either going to hit 450 or he's going to hit 180. And you just hope he gets hot at the right time. And last year, he was very hot. I'm not saying it was a fluke or undeserved. It was just, it wasn't surprising that Abreu was the one to win MVP in a 60-game season, because he's the type of guy that when he's hot, when he is at his best, he's a top 5 hitter in baseball. When he's at his worst, as he has been the past few weeks, it's very, very difficult to watch. And I think that when Abreu first started to struggle, I was just kind of like, okay, he does this. He's a very streaky hitter, but it's taken him, like, we're at a point now where, and yeah, he's been banged up. Jose tends to get banged up though. So I'm not saying I'm worried, but we're reaching a point now where it's like, all right, like something needs to break, because this is a cold streak that is extending a lot longer than Jose Abreu cold streaks typically do. And I was thinking today, actually, Jose's a guy who has built his entire career off of his ability to make adjustments. Nobody on the team, maybe even nobody in the American League, is better at making game-to-game, series-to-series, week-to-week adjustments as Jose Abreu is. That's why he never cooled down after his incredibly hot first month of his career in 2014. And I almost think that with the foreign substances, and this, call me crazy, but you see guys like Kyle Schwarber is hitting the ball better than Babe Ruth even ever hit the baseball. And Shohei Ohtani is really hot, as he has been all season. Joey Gallo is really hot. Certain guys are seeing the ball so much better, but I also think that certain guys are seeing the ball a lot worse. And you almost have to wonder, with a guy like Abreu, who is so adept at making adjustments, this could be something that he had adjusted to. He had fully adjusted to the high spin rates. He knows what a high spin rate fastball is going to look like. Breaking pitch, he always gets them. Now that pitches are coming out a little bit more flat, I think that the whole comfort level at the plate is different. On top of the fact, and the thing that really, really, really concerns me most about Abreu is he's not hitting the fastball anymore. And these fastballs are flat now with the spin rate being down. So guys are just blowing it by him, which is really, really not good for Jose Abreu. 3-hitter, guy's got to be a good fastball hitter, has been for the greater part of his career, but I think that this season we're seeing a accumulation of too many adjustments, and it really hurts me to say age with Abreu, because came in as an old rookie, and age hasn't been something that's caught up to him. But if this continues, I think that we're going to start to have to talk about Jose Abreu's career starting to, maybe he peaked last year, maybe he peaked a couple years back. And maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here, but there are just so many different things that aren't going well for him that typically go really well. Like even when he's cold, he hits the fastball well. And now he's not hitting anything. He's not running into anything. He's not hitting those hard line drives. Even like I remember Hawk used to say that when Jose would be cold and then he'd lace a foul ball, and Hawk would be like, that's going to get him going. And he figured it out soon thereafter, and we just haven't had that moment yet. And it's concerning. It hurts, and just really have to hope that Abreu can get healthy and get back in his rhythm because, oh, man, do the White Sox need him.
So I'm assuming you would try to make one trade at least for some offense between now and the trade deadline.
Well, they need a second baseman. As much as we all like Danny Mendick, I don't think anybody not on this podcast, not on Twitter, not in the ballpark would feel comfortable with him being the starting second baseman on a playoff team.
Mm-hmm.
So second base is something that needs to be figured out. And there's also no organizational depth at second base, which typically that is a position that a lot of teams are loose on. But like Tim Beckham's been hitting the ball well in AAA. That's not somebody, though, that's going to fill Madrigal's void. So second base is priority number one. Number two for me is the bullpen. This current bullpen is good when it wants to be, but in the postseason, you can't decide when you want to be good. You have to be good every single game. So the White Sox, my blueprint would be second baseman. You have to add a second baseman. You have to add a late inning arm, and then you need to add a consistent, doesn't even need to be a big name reliever, doesn't need to be anybody that costs anything. It just be somebody who will be healthy, will get guys out, almost a filler, somebody you can throw, like Evan Marshall type guy, but just a little bit more consistent than Evan Marshall, and somebody with a more defined role than Evan Marshall. So definitely second baseman, at least one relief pitcher. An outfielder would be great, but I do think that rolling into the postseason with an outfield that was an outfield and designated hitter position that's some combination of Vaughn, Jimenez, Robert, and Engel, I think you're looking pretty good there. But second base needs to be figured out, as does the back end of the bullpen.
Yeah, for sure. I'm pretty much spot on with you. Offense is definitely the issue, along with maybe a bullpen piece or two. But I'm going to send it back over to Joe because I think there are some people in the chat that have a couple questions for you.
Yeah. So the chat's getting pretty active here. I got an interesting question that none of us want to go doom and gloom, but we got a question. What do you think happens if these injured players don't return? Like you don't get an Eloy back. You don't get a Robert. I mean, what happens then?
Oh, this is something that the front office has absolutely considered, and nobody knows the progress that these guys have made more than the front office. So there are definitely a couple contingency plans. Kopech's returning. I'd say actually the only reason why he hasn't returned is because, one, the White Sox probably don't want to burn any of his innings or pitch limit on a rehab stint. And two, this kind of, I don't want to say it was a blessing in disguise, but now that Kopech has been on the shelf for a little bit, this gives the White Sox the opportunity to let him loose in the playoffs. Now, as for Robert, would not be very good if Luis Robert went down because now you need a new center fielder. Can't roll into the playoffs with Leury, or as much as we all love Billy Hamilton, he is not a playoff center fielder. So the worst case would be if Luis Robert didn't come back. Eloy Jimenez, I don't think a lot of people really know what we're missing with Eloy just because he's sort of a one-dimensional type player as a power hitter. And the contact hitting really came along last season, but his brand is power hitting. As for Eloy, if Eloy doesn't come back, I could see the White Sox going for somebody like Joey Gallo, who is going to completely fill up the power production that they've been missing. Be a little bit much better fielder, but same type of strikeout rate. You're going to get a kind of similar player in him, but he'd be very costly. So to be honest, if these injured players don't return, I think that it would be worse than any gut-wrenching loss, anything. That would be like the absolute worst-case scenario because we're all banking on these guys coming back, Robert and Jimenez especially. It would be bad, especially if it happened after the deadline. That's the scary thing about those August return dates is we won't know what type of player we're getting until after it's too late. So that's the thing that really gets me. But to be honest, if these injured players do not return, I think that unless the White Sox do something crazy at the deadline and have some foresight on that, I think that it's going to be a pretty rough September and October.
Yeah, I think we all agree we don't want that to happen, but I guess worst case scenario, we'll deal with it as it comes. One of our Gabriel in the chat room has got a good question for you as well. Do you think Abreu lasts 2 years before retirement? Gabe seems to think so, but what do you think, Jason?
I don't think he's 2 years away from retirement. I think that so he's obviously going to play next year, and then I think that that's when the conversation will start. But Jose's been pretty tough. He's been struggling a lot recently, but I have full faith that he's at least going to come back to half the player that we know him as. And if he does that, he will be. I think that it's almost going to be like a Paul Konerko type of situation where he will be here as long as he wants to be here. Even past the point of anybody else having any interest in him, I think that as long as Jose wants to play, he will have a spot on the roster. And will that role diminish? Absolutely. I think to answer your question better, after 2 years, I think we're going to see less of Jose Abreu. Andrew Vaughn, left field now, first base in the future. So I think that I don't think these are his last 2 years. I refuse to believe that in my head and in my heart. And just logically, I think he has a little more mileage left. But I think that after those 2 years, we're going to start seeing the conversation roll a little bit about how much longer is Jose Abreu going to be playing Major League Baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, there's actually a report that came out today that he wanted to play. He wanted Tony to let him play today if the game didn't get rained out. So I think it would be smart to see Vaughn there for a couple games. But Jose, being the gamer that he is, he wants to get out there and play. I think personally getting a couple days off might be good for his psyche. Do you think a couple days off, or maybe a week or maybe up to the All-Star break could help him kind of get his mind right? I don't know if we lost you,
maybe
Jason.
not for Jose because he's just the type of guy, like I said, with the adjustments. Oh, okay. You can hear me now?
We got you back. Yep, you're back.
Cool. So to answer your question, with Abreu, I don't think a couple days off would serve him well. Intentional days off, at least, just because the White Sox lineup where it stands right now can't really afford to be without him. That's why when he got hit yesterday, sure, I think that it sent shockwaves throughout the entire ballpark, entire fan base, because that's the one guy, regardless of how he's playing, cannot lose Jose Abreu. Completely changes the lineup. So a couple off days, would it be good for him? Probably. Would Jose Abreu ever take a couple off days? I think you'd have to chop one of his legs off for him to take a couple off days in a row. So is that the stage for him? Maybe not yet. I think if we're in here next week, it's been another rough week for him, and you can say what you will about him being banged up. I think that then a couple of days off could probably serve him well, just because we'll be at a juncture where it's like, okay, Jose isn't doing what he normally does, where he picks it back up, where he adjusts. Now, how do we fix this? Now we need to do something we haven't done before. So in a week, maybe, yeah. Right now, no. Especially against the Twins. The Twins pitching has been atrocious this year, and I think that this will serve as a good for.
All right. Well, Jason, I think we lost you for a hot second there. But if you do come back, I'm gonna pop you off for just a second, and then I popped Jason off for just a second. I think he's running into a couple little internet issues there, but you can't deny everything that Jason's saying. You got to make sure you follow him on Twitter at Jason Conander, and you can see all his work at Southside Sox. I'm gonna drop him back in. I think he's here. Jason, can you hear us now? I think you're back.
Yes, I can.
All right, so we lost you for a hot second there, but that's all right. Now that we got you back, I was just telling everybody they could make sure they follow you on Twitter at Jason Conander, and then see your work at Southside Sox on Twitter as well, and the website. Why don't you talk a little bit more about some of the stuff you have coming up soon, and where our listeners and viewers can check out your work?
Yeah, so kind of two things. First, obviously, I'm very excited to have recently joined Southside Sox. My first article is up. Should have a couple more pieces out this week. Really looking forward to that. Really happy to be back writing about the White Sox. It's my passion. It's my bread and butter. Additionally, as many of you may know, I do a podcast with my mom, the Sportscaster and her son. You can find it literally everywhere: Podbean, Apple Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. We are also part of the Barroom Network with that. So love doing that with my mom. It's a good time. I learn a lot. Have some really cool guests on, and it's really just fun. We literally shoot the podcast down here in the basement where I am right now. So can't forget about that. That's also in my Twitter bio. Basically, everything I'm doing is in my Twitter bio. Until I get back to school, it'll basically be all White Sox and Sportscaster son from there. But looking forward to producing a lot more content, both in my writing and in my podcasting the rest of the summer. So, yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, I think I speak for all of us when we say we'll have to make sure we get to catch a game at some point this summer. We'll go grab a couple beers, Chai Sox Bar and Grill, maybe make our way over to Cork and Kerry or Turtles or something, and living the South Side dream, man. So again, we appreciate you giving us so much of your time tonight. And you're welcome back anytime you want. So it's great talking baseball with you, Jason.
And really quick before you go, is Texas football ever going to be back?
Not this year. Not this year. But 2022 opening game is at home against Alabama. We'll have a 5-star quarterback. Maybe then we can talk about them being back. But Texas baseball and Texas basketball are back. Hook 'em horns.
All right.
All right, hook 'em horns. Jason, again, thank you so much for your time. And make sure everyone listening checks out the podcast, the Sportscaster and her son on the Barroom Network and wherever you can find podcasts. And check out Jason's work on Twitter at Jason Kadander and at Southside Sox. So, Jason, thanks again, buddy, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Jason.
All right, guys. Jason was awesome. A huge thank you to him for joining us this entire time. I know we've been fighting. There's these storms blowing through. Internet's going crazy. So a huge thank you to Jason for joining us, man. It was a blast. And real quick, let me get this ticker off at the bottom of the screen. And gentlemen, before we get to the rest of the show, I would say it's time for a quick commercial break. And then we'll be right back. And we're going to get to all of the segments that you know and love. So we'll see you I can't talk. We'll see you after this commercial break.
South Burbs Hitmen will be right back.
This Tuesday night at the Barroom, Dan and Aldo are going to talk movie femme fatales. These are women playing dangerous characters. They are sexy. Remember Ali Lartner in the movie Obsessed? Or Selma Hayek in Savages? Femme fatales are also manipulative, like Halle Berry in Swordfish. Or Demi Moore in Disclosure, and Jennifer Lopez in U-Turn and Hustlers. These characters will commit crimes to get their way, like Nev Campbell and Denise Richards in Wild Things, and Jennifer Tilly and Gina Gershon in Bound. Who's your favorite movie femme fatale? Leave a comment below, or why don't you join us at 7:30 Central live and interact with us. And we've got a special guest who will bring her favorites, Rachel Van Horange. Can't catch us live? Then watch on demand on YouTube or wherever you get your audio podcasts. It's Tuesday night at the Barroom. Dan and Aldo bare their souls.
South Burbs Hitmen.
All right, boys, we are back after that quick commercial break. Again, a huge thank you to our guest, Jason Kadander. Make sure you go give him a follow on Twitter. And he's just an all-around great guy, so we appreciate his time. Vinny, I know our buddy Gonzo is joining us back as well. Let's break down a little bit more about what we were talking about at the top of the show. So we had a rough week, okay? So we went 1-1 against the Pittsburgh Pirates, who are not very good. And then we went 1-2 against Seattle. So that was rough. We were there, of course, for that Saturday. Well, actually, you were there Saturday. You were there Friday and Saturday, although Saturdays got rained out eventually. It was a rough game on Friday night. No one can get it going offensively, and the pitching just wasn't there. It was a tough week. What's your diagnosis of what went wrong over the last week and change?
Yeah, so I want to say the Houston thing. We've obviously had a show since then, but that was a team that was just crazy hot. Like, sometimes you're just going to get swept. Every team gets swept. The 05 White Sox had an 0-7 stretch. The 2016 Cubs had a 5-15 stretch. You know, I'm just bringing up those two teams because they're the teams our audience most likely knows the most championship-wise. I just think sometimes stuff like that happens, right? So then you get to the Pirates series. Well, in the Pirates series, they won the second one, but in the first one, they actually had a lead late and then they blew it. So, you know, Yasmani Grandal, credit to Tony La Russa for recognizing that was a time to pinch hit for him. I had an issue with him not starting, with it being a pitcher on the mound that he can do damage against, but he made up for it by pinch hitting at the right time. And it's not anyone's fault other than, the pitchers that the lead slipped away late. So that's a 1-1 series split against a bad team. Okay, I can get over that. Then you run into Seattle. Seattle is hotter than Houston. People don't even realize it. I saw people commenting on articles and stuff. Oh, Seattle sucks. How do we lose? Like, Seattle does not suck, at least right now. I don't care what their record is at the end of the season. They're playing like a contender right now. Sometimes that just happens to bad teams. Just like a good team can go on a slump, a bad team can go on a rage. And that's exactly what Seattle's doing right now. They were beating anyone. Mitch Haniger, he's going to hit this France kid. Oh, that guy's awesome. We're learning about some of these guys. Their pitching did their job, and the White Sox took 1-3. And as bad as it was over the weekend, the White Sox actually gained a half-game lead on Cleveland over that horrible weekend. So it's not all bad. They're treading water without two superstars. We'll see if they can continue. They need those guys back. We asked Jason, or our chat asked Jason, what will happen if those two don't come back? Well, if those two don't come back, they're not a World Series contender. The contingency of them being a World Series team was all of this talent coming up at the same time and elevating them. Well, you got Kopech. He's here. You got Giolito. He's here. Abreu was always there. TA is as good as any shortstop in the league. But you're missing two of the key pieces. You saw people with the shirts that listed all the prospects. And the two right at the top were Robert Jimenez and, of course, Moncada. Moncada's there. He's in a little bit of a slump right now, but not worried about him. So it's just a long answer of it was a rough weekend, but how worried can you be based on the circumstance of the opponent and the circumstance of our White Sox?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It was one of those weekends that you just got to quickly get over it. You can't linger on it. It's not going to help anybody, and you just got to get back to work. They got rained out today. They have potential of being rained out again tomorrow. I think for sure we'll get a game on Thursday, but I'm just interested to see. Today's rain out, by the way, got rescheduled for July 19th. So when that game comes around, we could be a totally different team and maybe firing on all cylinders. So hopefully they can play tomorrow. But another thing that's kind of go ahead.
There were a lot of meteorologists on Twitter today, too, I noticed. Like, oh, it's not going to be raining at game time. And then it came out that Mrs. Reinsdorf passed away. Our condolences to her and the Reinsdorf family. I don't know if you guys noticed that before it kind of was announced not long before we went live. So all those things, the White Sox need a day off.
Yeah, no, I did not catch that before we went live, Vinny. So I do appreciate you dropping that bomb. That's a good one. Well, I mean, our heartfelt condolences to the Reinsdorf family. But what I mean is that's a big piece of news, and of course, I'm sure that was a factor as well. So yeah, that's really sad to hear. But keeping things moving along with the White Sox conversation, we talked about the Eduardo Escobar potential trade coming to the White Sox. They're asking too much right now. That's basically what it comes down to. But on the other side of the spectrum, our top pitching prospect, aka a guy who's been up with us a good chunk of the year, and Michael Kopech, he was a top prospect. Now he's up with the team. He's pitched a simulated game, did well on Friday. He's close. He'll be back probably in the next few days, maybe even tomorrow. I guess we'll find out. Gonzo, how big of a difference is it going to be having Michael Kopech back in that bullpen and able to do some spot starts?
It's a huge difference. I mean, we were just talking about, with Jason, with the trade deadline coming up, what his priorities were. I might disagree a little bit with going second baseman as your first priority, but he did mention in there, relief pitcher. And with Kopech coming back, you may not have to trade for a relief pitcher with using him in high leverage situations. Because you also have to, don't forget that Ryan Burr right now out of the bullpen has been really hot. And this is a guy that, the big leagues haven't seen too much, and he's flourishing right now in these performances. And he can, these performances kind of remind me of last year in the shortened season with, Matt Foster and Evan Marshall just going off. And now this year we have, Ryan Burr going off. Birdie got banged up, but I really liked what we've seen out of Burr so far. So with the addition of Kopech and Burr, those could be two solid right arms that can help with these scenarios with, Foster and Marshall struggling as our righties. I always say regression to the mean because it's absolutely true, how these relievers go from year to year. And
sure,
as long as you got answers to these regressions of your relievers, it's a good thing to have, and especially with Kopech, because Kopech and Crochet in high leverage situations, righty and lefty, they just have dangerous arsenals. Granted, it seems like Crochet with his limited innings, and it really looks like the injury has affected his impact with his potential this year out of the bullpen. It just seems like he's been hampered by it, and he's slowly progressing with it. But, that's why we as fans, we have to be patient. We have to enjoy the marathon and not the sprint. And that's because we get to watch this progression slowly and surely. But as far as, Kopech coming back, I do agree with what Vinny brought up in the Jason conversation with, since they're limited in his innings, you probably won't see him on DL Sprint and AAA. They're probably going to, get him in quicker than that. But yeah, when Kopech is back, it's an absolute, must in our bullpen. And we probably won't need a relief, which is going to save us resources with other moves like right fielder and second baseman. Those are two main priorities. And if you get those two, let's say with the question that I know Rena brought up with what happens if, Robert and Jimenez don't come back. Now that question in itself, it's a rough one because, yeah, we do need that power, but at the same time, we can still go pretty far without the power by our pitching staff that we have with the rotation and the bullpen. That will keep us in close games and deep into October. And you have a World Series coach to help with the old school ball to get those, potential to get those crucial runs that you need. But again, it depends on how Han attacks those trades at the deadline, because you do need, let's say at second baseman, they get Escobar, in right field, they get Starling Marte or Charlie Blackmon, one of those two guys. Part of the reason, I know you, right out of the commercial break, you asked about this the past 2 weeks, and, it's not about who you play, but when you play them. The Astros were just scorching hot. And not only are they hot, but they showed other teams a scouting report on us. With Abreu not having protection in the lineup, you can pitch around him. And that just dampens the lineup that much more because we're not deep in the middle. So if you can get some resources to come in to help that lineup a little bit more, to get a little bit more protection, to move the lineup around, the lineup becomes a little bit more dangerous than it is right now. And that could be the difference of getting back that spark on offense to go along with our dangerous pitching. So that's what I see at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And let's get digging into the rest of the show. We're going to talk about our buddy Tony La Russa. How'd he do this week? Well, that's what we talk about in this segment. Yeah, so Tony had an interesting week. It started off pretty good in Pittsburgh. He had that pinch hit Grandal, and he comes in and he hits that 3-run blast, and things are looking pretty. They still find a way to lose that game, but it was just a great decision by Tony, so I got to give him props for that. But then you see the opposite side of the spectrum. Vinny, when we're at the game on Friday, it's a slow start. You see Rodon's kind of getting picked apart, but he wasn't horrible. He wasn't great. He was just kind of like, somewhere in the middle of the pack. But then you see Ruiz warming up in the bullpen, and I immediately turned to Gonzo. I'm like, man, this is not good. What were your thoughts when you saw Ruiz warming up?
Yeah, so guys like Matt Foster and Evan Marshall, and to some degree Aaron Bummer, even though I'm 0% worried about him as of right now, those guys struggled a little bit so far this season. But when they come in to pitch, I still have faith. I don't know why. Maybe it's just blind, naive faith, but I have faith because I've seen what they can do in the past. But with Ruiz, the thing I gathered from the minute the season started, and we're talking back in April, when Ruiz comes in, it's always when they're down, and it just feels like a game they're going to lose. Now, you get into Friday, and it's the first game at 100% capacity. Place is buzzing. Guaranteed Rayfield was drunk on Friday night. And, people are doing their chant. And what were they? They were down 2 or 3 at that point?
3.
And Ruiz comes in. Really? You're down 3. If that's your guy, he's the worst pitcher in your bullpen, stuff-wise. He's had his moments this year. I'm not going to completely rag on the guy. He's not the worst thing I've ever seen. But if he's your guy that you put in when you're down to eat some innings and this ball game's over instead of using a position player, you can't be bringing him in at that point in time. Now, I'm not at the point this season where everything Tony La Russa does annoys me. It just hasn't been the case in over a month now. But that was something I would not have done if I were the manager. I'm never going to be. I didn't like it at all. It seemed like they were kind of giving up. And they probably weren't. He probably wants to know what he's got in guys like Ruiz and Burr, and they're all going to get their chances. It's not the last time he's going to come in with a slight deficit or a slight lead. But I don't know. I wasn't a fan of it. It seemed, and of course, they tagged him, pretty much put the game. When the White Sox offense is cold like it is right now, it feels like a 5 or 6 run deficit is insurmountable. So I wasn't a fan of the move.
Yeah, it was a tough one. And then Gonzo, I got to ask you, because I don't know if you saw the video. I've been trying to track it down in the background, but I have not had any success.
I can get it to you if you'd like.
Yeah, if you could quickly send me a link, I'll pull it up in the background. But I don't know if you saw the video. There was after the win the other day when Mercedes had the nice hit. There's this weird thing that Tony La Russa started slapping Yermin, and it almost looked like he's pissed off, like he's gonna crack him in the face. I'm curious your thoughts on it if you've seen it.
Yeah, no, I saw it right away. I like the little, the spanter that they had with each other. I mean, I don't think he's lost the clubhouse when he's messing around with them on the field like that after a win. I mean, that's a man. You got to spicing up the mood when you're going through, a tough week like they are, and they just beat them in that third game in the second day of that the second game of that doubleheader. But to go back to what Vinny was saying, I'm actually on the opposite end of that. This is also the 5th inning that they removed Rodon. This isn't the 7th or 8th inning. So you need your bullpen to eat up innings when you're down by 3. And let's say if they did put in their high leverage guys in there and blew their pitch counts out for that game, you can't really use them the next day if you need them. But what are you going to do in a situation where you're still going to lose the game by 1? It'd be a 4-3 game if you bring your relievers in, high leverage pitchers in, I should say. So I absolutely understood it. Joe, you looked at me in that situation, like you said, and I just looked at you. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, your bullpen needs to eat up innings because your pitcher couldn't get past the 5th. I mean, and he's just struggling. Like, And me and you both were watching the pitch count roll down from the first inning. It just kept going up and up and up. And you said he's lucky to get in 6, and I said, "What, Joe?" I said he'd probably get in 5.
You said he's going 5.
Yeah,
you were right.
I understood that situation, and they've gotten out. They, like Vinny did bring up, they got us out of those situations before. So Ruiz, Birdie, whoever, Birdie got us out of a situation in Boston. Ruiz has done it several times. Burr was going to come up right after Foster. So I get it, what happened in that series. It just sucks because we had no spark. Maybe I'd say this, maybe if the offense was even average of lately or doing well, then maybe you would have seen a high leverage, reliever coming into the game because, Tony would know that, we can come back easily. I just think he already knows the situation. But yeah, here's the video. And gosh, I was laughing at this when I saw it on Twitter.
I saw it over and over again, and I was like, just look at Tony's face. I know he's playing, but man, he looks like he's freaking pissed off.
I feel like right when the camera cuts away, though, he lays down the biggest smile. Like you could kind of see it coming, and then the camera cuts away and restarts the video. I personally couldn't think that this is a more playful video because he was the best player in that game. Talking about Yermin, he was the most productive offensive player. Zach Collins had 1 more RBI, but Mercedes had 2 runs scored to Collins 0. But either way, it was one of those two. You could pick your poison. I loved it. It kind of showed me like, they are cool.
And wasn't that Mercedes that like a month ago, Twitter caught after a victory that he went after Tony's nipples, like in the victory lines? Like these guys are just having fun with each other.
Yeah, for sure.
I could watch this all day.
Me too. Put that video on my Twitter.
That's going to be the whole rest of the show. We're just going to play this video for for the last 45 minutes of the show. Not really, but
I was ready.
If that's what you're in. Hey, if that's what you're into, hey, I'm not going to stop you. All right. Anyway, I got to get that off my screen because I'm going to start cackling if I keep looking up there. But to get that's it. To get the show back on track. The last thing I wanted to bring up, guys, is something that really kind of resonates with me. Is the Saturday game that Vinny was at? Of course, got rained out, and they not rained out, postponed until the next day. Well, that day, Dallas Keuchel was ready. He said he wanted to pitch the 9th inning, and Tony wouldn't let him. And Keuchel's statement kind of sounds like he's pissed off at Tony. He said he feels like he should have the right after his service time here or something along those lines.
He said he's been here long enough where he feels he's been here long enough to like have some say in that.
Yeah. So, I mean, think about it this way. Dallas is pissed off about it. And look, Hendricks blows it, right? So now in context, it looks even worse. I mean, what do you guys think about this? Is there something brewing here between Tony and Dallas? Because I kind of feel like there might be, or am I just blowing smoke, Vinny? I see you shaking your head.
Yeah, if he would have left Dallas in and he blew it, I would have been livid. I was not livid when Liam Hendricks misplaced a breaking pitch and the hitter hit it to Pluto. I forget who it was. I don't know. I just think like you're Dallas Keuchel. You've pitched 7 innings now. You're a contact guy. 1 run basically ends the game, as we saw. The offense is struggling. I was cool with Liam going out there and living to fight another day. Get to the 10th, score that run. And, and Liam, if he would have gotten that out, he would have done it with like 9 pitches because he got 2 quick ones. And I know what he meant with that comment, but just I am like, that is funny. Completely threw me off my game, which is kind of hard to do.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's totally. I love it. That's funny. If Liam would have got out of it with 10, 11, 12 pitches, you figure he comes back out in the 10th to preserve another lead if they score that runner on second to start the inning. So I like that decision personally. I understand Dallas is a competitor and all that. I also think he's comfortable enough to say these things where it doesn't matter. If he was truly pissed off at La Russa, I'm not sure he would have came out publicly and said what he said.
Right.
So I don't know. I just think it's not that big of a deal. Dallas has always been vocal ever since he got to the White Sox. I don't know why he's bringing up his tenure, because first of all, your tenure is not that great, Dallas Keuchel. You've been there for you've been there for less than 120 games. Is it? It's like 60 plus 70. I'm not a math guy. That's something less.
That's 130.
It's less than an actual full season, Dallas Keuchel. And I love you, Dallas Keuchel, but your tenure is something you should not be bringing up. If you want to bring up your tenure in the league, that's one thing. You got a Cy Young. You're a champion. I understand Dallas Keuchel's career, but to act like your tenure with the White Sox is anything spectacular, like nobody should be acting like that with the White Sox. Leury Garcia is the longest tenured player. So I don't want to hear anything about Dallas Keuchel's tenure. He has every right to be annoyed as a competitor, but I don't think it's really too much from that. I don't know what you think.
No, I agree. I don't have the problem with Tony's decision there. Not one bit. But gentlemen, go ahead.
I was going to do exactly what you were going to do.
Do it.
If Adam Dunn was on the White Sox, Tony would have him on the bench, and that brings you to the Adam Dud of the week.
You suck. You suck.
Stupid. Lousy. No excuse.
What a dud. What a total dud.
Yes, the Adam Dud of the week.
I don't know if I've ever hated a player more
than Adam Dunn.
He's up there for me. Like when you wear that
him
uniform,
and Adam LaRoche.
When you wear that uniform, I love you with my whole heart. Once you take it off, if I hated you deep down in my heart, see ya. Adam LaRoche, I might hate his kid more. Yeah.
Oh, geez. That's the wonders of podcasting, folks. I love it. Straight off the cuff. Funny stuff. But, of course, we're talking about the players that struggled hard this week, and there was a lot of them. Who sucked the most? Gonzo, I'll let you lead things off.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the trend that Jason started, and Jose Abreu. I know, Jose. I'm talking to you straightforward here, my friend, Mr.
He watches.
Yeah, I know he does. He's been hard on me lately. But Pito, I'm sorry, my friend, and you're going to be upset about this, but you're my Adam Dud of the week. I mean, last week I told you that you got to get this offense sparked, and they're relying on you, and it's the truest message we can tell you. And I understand that, like I said a couple of minutes ago, that you're missing your boys from Cuba, Robert and Jimenez. You're missing 2 power bats, but you're the MVP. You got to spark this offense, and you got to be patient with that at bat to bring those pitchers back into the zone. I know I looked at Joe during the game on Saturday, the first 2 rounds through the lineup, and I'm like, Joe, these guys are swinging at everything. They're not, there's no patience at all. And the lefty, we should be banging on him like we did in Seattle, and it was just sad to watch. But yeah, he's absolutely cold right now. Maybe I pick him in my pick to click to get hot. We'll see about that. But Abreu, you need to get the boys going before the All-Star break and expand this lead that we have on Cleveland, because it's slimming down. And maybe Han will help you out with some spark plugs of trades coming up. But in the meantime, we need you and this offense rolling. You and Timmy need to get those engines rolling. So
that's right, man. All right. Abreu.
Adam Dunn.
Well, foreshadowing.
Yep.
Vinny, who stunk it up for you this week?
Well, it's one of those things, like whenever the whole team kind of stunk, except for Tim Anderson and Yasmani and Dallas. It's hard for me to just narrow it down to one person, and they didn't win a whole lot. I don't like stress. Not a fan of it. And Jimmy Lambert caused me some stress. And he was the 27th man on the roster for the doubleheader, and then they sent him right back down. But he had an okay first inning. I wasn't a fan of him giving up a 2-run or a 3-run bomb to Mitch Haniger late in that game. So I'm just going to hand it over to Jimmy Lambert just based on pure feeling, because you can't be doing that, Jimmy Lambert. I need you to not make a game that you're winning 7-1 at one point be close in the end. Like Seattle, we probably would have dipped into Liam Hendricks. Or no, they did anyway. But they would have dipped into the bullpen even more than they already did with a doubleheader if that would have been a 9-inning game. So, Jimmy Lambert, be better next time you're up.
You're diminishing trade potential, my friend. Damn it.
I don't need to do that.
No, Lambert.
If I have that much power, credit to me.
No, I'm saying Lambert's diminishing his trade potential.
Oh.
Not you.
Both of us. I certainly didn't help his trade value by giving that little rant, but.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it didn't help at all. I mean, for me, I know I'm kind of a cop-out, but I'm going to go with the bullpen as a whole. The bullpen just greatly underperformed, couldn't get it done. Just no consistency, really. And I can't remember the last time I've seen the Sox give up this many runs in consecutive games. I would have to look at that stat, but I feel like every game they gave up 7 or 8 runs, which I feel like I'm watching a different team, and I kind of was. They're definitely not themselves. So the Adam Dud of the week for me is the White Sox bullpen, hoping they can turn things around. Hopefully tomorrow if they can play this game against the Tigers.
Twins.
Sorry. I'm thinking to the weekend already.
Wrong last place Midwest team.
Yeah, easy squeezy. Twins, Tigers, whatever.
It's nice to say that the Twins are in last.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Big time.
Although they're finally starting to piece some wins together, I don't want to count them dead until they're really dead. So I don't want to discount anybody at this point. But I would agree that they're definitely not the Twins of old. So hopefully that stays.
You're going to enjoy it for SouthsideShowdown.com because we got one coming up about how the Twins are not dead yet. I'm not going to say they're going to go on a Washington Nationals type run, but if that organization has any sort of brain, they'll acquire a pitcher or two and try because their starting lineup is awesome.
Yeah, they can definitely clobber the ball, that's for sure. But speaking of clobbering the ball, let's put it on the board.
Way back! He looks up! You can put it on the board! Yes!
Well, it's hard to think of a lot of players that really tore it up this week. You can really only mention probably 1 or 2 names. And I think the name that comes on top of everyone's mind is Yasmani Grandal, continuing to clobber the ball. Of course, he's not hitting for the good chunk of the season. Now he's hitting and no one else is hitting. So that's like the most White Sox sentence I've ever said out loud in my life. Vinny, do you have anyone else that fits the bill or you just want to praise Yasmani here?
Yeah, I have something really quick, but you said about Yasmani being the only hot one and the rest of them are all cold. That is another reason why I fully believe in this team, because there's no way that continues. Just the law of averages says maybe Yasmani's not that hot, but the rest of the team's not that cold. So once they meet each other in the middle, if they make a trade or two, I truly believe 1 through 9 can be a World Series contender. There's no other team in the league that just sticks out as that team, like the 2018 Red Sox, or, even in 2020, the short season, you knew the Dodgers were better than everyone else. People were like, oh, the Padres, but like the Dodgers were that team. There's nothing like that this year right now. The Giants are like a surprise team and they lead the league. So that's where I'm at on that. And I'm going to give a shout out to somebody. I thought he won the game in game 1 on Monday. I truly stood up and I said, no way, no way, no way. And that's Jake Lamb. Jake Lamb, he didn't hit a home run. He's not going to hit 30 like he did in a couple All-Star years a few years ago. But every now and then he can run into one. I'm happier with him in the lineup than somebody who can't hit. He plays comparable outfield. He's an infielder. He's kind of pulling a Vaughn. No one talks about that, how 2 of their 3 outfielders are actually infielders. But I don't know. I like Jake Lamb as a player on a bench. He's got to play a little more than I would like to see on this injured team, but I thought he had the game 1 on Sunday in that first game after Hendricks gave up the home. Yeah, Hendricks gave up a home run and they were down 3-2 with a runner on. I thought it was out, and then the center fielder made a sweet play to keep it from at least being tied, and stuff like that happens. So for me, it's Jake Lamb this week. Keep it going, Lambo. You'll run into one again.
I like it, dude. We got that Lamborghini parked in 35th and Shields. I like
it. Lambo and a Mercedes. I love it.
Ooh, the car puns. I like it. Let's keep it going because maybe those guys get hot because of it. Chris Gonzalez, who is your put it on the board player of the week?
No, you stole mine with Yasmani Grandal. And me and you, Joe, we were pretty close to that home run ball on Friday that was launched over the bullpen.
Why don't you tell that story real quick?
I think we're going to tell that story coming up in another segment, if I'm not mistaken.
Ooh. We are. Oh, I love that teaser. Yes. Thank you for queuing it up for me, Gonzo. So that reminds me, at the end of the show, we always do something fun. This week, we're going to be talking about best live moments at a game that we can remember. It doesn't have to be in something important. It could just be something cool you witnessed. It could be a huge game-winning home run, whatever. We're going to talk about it. In chat room, start thinking about it in your brain because we're going to be talking about it here in just a little bit. But before we do, we are getting to the picks to click portion of the show. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly pull up last week's picks to click. I have it right here. I had Tim Anderson. Zim had Yoan Moncada. Gonzo with Vaughn. And Vinny went with Jose Abreu. Here's the stats, guys. This week, Tim Anderson, 6 for 21 with bat 286 with 1 ribby, 1 stolen base, 3 runs scored, 6 strikeouts. Andrew Vaughn for Gonzo went 1 for 12, batting .083 with 0 ribbies, 0 runs. Vinny had Jose Abreu went 2 for 13 with 0 RBI, 1 run, 1 walk, 6 Ks. And then our buddy Zim had Yoan Moncada, who was the closest to me with my Anderson pick. And Moncada went 4 for 16, batting .250 with 2 ribbies, 1 run, 5 walks, and 4 strikeouts. I guess the walks kind of put him in the conversation close to Timmy because he got on base more than Timmy. I don't know, guys. I'll let you two decide. Do I give this one to Zim, or do I claim it for myself with Anderson? It's close.
I would
Anderson had a better. You would give it to Anderson?
Yeah.
I vote for Moncada. On base
well,
percentage.
The tie goes to the host, so I'm going to get another one this week.
Horse.
And Zim is watching somewhere like
Zim,
curse the baseball gods.
I believe Moncada has a higher on base percentage than Timmy does with those walks. So.
Yeah, but does defense count?
Yes, defense does count.
That play, Tim Anderson.
Timmy had a sick play.
That play he made where he got the ball to Garcia after he bobbled it twice saved their chance to win that game. I stand
Amen, man. I would agree. So because of that, I'm going to take it. Because why not? I deserve it. So let me pull up the updated standings here. I have them in front of me. I am quickly catching up with our buddy Gonzo. I feel like Gonzo is going to start to sweat. But look at this. Gonzo with 6. Zim with 2. I'm coming up behind him with 5. Vinny's getting on the board. He's getting warmed up. He's going to pull it off like me. There was one point where I was like 4 or 5 behind. So I feel like Vinny's getting ready to rip off a hot streak. So I know Vinny's coming after us. So we'll just keep that in the back of our mind. But let's get to this week's pick to click, shall we? So who are you going to – actually, I won. So I guess that means I get to go first. I'm going to cheat a little bit, and I'm going to go with the guy who's red hot right now. I'm going to take Yasmani Grandal. And then I got a text from our buddy Zim, who's unable to join us tonight. He is going with Tim Anderson. So, recap. I'm going with our buddy Yaz. Zim is going to go with Tim Anderson. Vinny, I'm going to let you go next because you gotta get a W on the board. Who are you taking?
Yeah, so I'm gonna try and get my first W with my personal. I don't even know if I've ever told this on the show. My personal favorite White Sox position player, and that's Yoan Moncada. I'm gonna take our
Ooh.
third baseman. I'm gonna listen to Desastre Personal every single day this week because he's an international pop star, and I low key love that song. I don't even speak Spanish, but I love that song. And I sing every word. It could be saying like horrible things, and I would have no clue. I sing every word.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's saying, but I like it.
All I know is Desastre Personal means personal disaster, which I have been a personal disaster on the pick to click, so it's only fitting. And I'm going to take our third baseman superstar, Yoan Moncada. Vote for him in the All-Star game. He deserves it. My favorite song. It's literally my favorite song right now. I bet if I go on my phone, it's one of the more recent songs played.
There you go. Yeah, and how many players can say they have their own song as their walk-up song?
That's so sweet.
He's probably the only one, right?
Yeah,
What's
I mean,
that?
you got to be like a certain level of baller to do that.
He's definitely a baller. He definitely wears sweet Hawaiian shirts. Look at the cover art for that. If you can get,
I love it.
Glare off.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong. Yoan, that's on Spotify, by the way. Go support our buddy Yoan. He needs more money. Why not?
Mm-hmm. It's actually
all right, Gonzo. Well, yes, I know. He'll get his money.
Oh yeah.
I think he's doing okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Gonzo. Gonzo, who you going with?
Well, since all my selections were basically stolen, I'm going. That's what you have to deal with when you go last, but that's okay. I'm all in it for the game, the competition, and I kind of teased it earlier, even though I really wasn't going to go with him earlier. But now that I'm kind of forced to in this situation, but the MVP, Jose Abreu, he's going to definitely turn it around for me because Joe's catching up to me, and I know personally that Jose is not a big fan of Joe. So,
really?
Mr. Jose Abreu, the MVP, he's going to turn around and, we'll see Joe in the distance waving to me as I get on the train, and I'm off to running again. So, Jose Abreu, you are the MVP, the former MVP, and you are my pick to click.
In a plot twist, Jose Abreu doesn't play any games at all this week. But no, I hope he does. But recap, I'm going with Yaz. Zim's going with Anderson. Gonzo's going with Abreu. And Vinny is going with Yoan Moncada. Lots of good stuff coming. I feel like Vinny's getting his first. I don't know why. I just get that vibe. I guess we're going to find out. But, yeah, I'm putting this down. I saved it. And now we can get to the meat and bones, the final chunk of our show, which means I need to pull up the schedule in the background. So I'm going to quickly do that as I stall here. But this is a segment coming up where we talk about the week coming up in what is probably the least surprising segment name, called White Sox Weekly. Yes, that's right. We are going to preview the week coming up. While we had a rain out today, it kind of throws things into a bit of a flux, but lucky for you, Gonzo is going to talk about some of these pitching matchups, and we'll see kind of what happens as they shuffle. We're supposed to get some more rain tomorrow. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. So real quick, Gonzo, I'm going to pull up. There we go. That's not what I was trying to do. There we go. That's more like it. Let's take a look at the week coming up, and let me zoom in a little bit so there's our wonderful watch. There we go. Let's take a look at Tuesday, Gonzo. Walk us through it. We're playing the Twins and our buddy Lucas Giolito taking the hill.
Yeah, no, we were supposed to see this matchup tonight, but like you said, it got rained out. But so we do have 4 games. Well, now it's 3 games to begin the week, and then another 3 games to end the week in Detroit. Minnesota and Detroit. These 3 matchups are going to be tomorrow, Giolito and Maeda. And we'll see how Maeda is because he's just coming off of injury as of lately. So hopefully we can bat around on him maybe. And then we got Cease and Obar. on that'll be Wednesday. And then for me personally, this is probably my game of the week if it hangs out to be true, and that's going to be Rodon and Barrios. And those would be the 3 games. Sadly, it won't be 4, so we can't split it if we do have a bad series here. But in those matchups, like I did say, Rodon Barrios, that's my game of the series to watch. 2 absolute studs go at it. Rodon, Cy Young contender at the moment, and Jose Barrios, he's a former contender in himself with Cy Young, with that arm that he has. And like you did say, Vinny, this is a team that if they do trade for some pitchers that can go behind Barrios, they could get back into it, because Sox aren't running away with the division right now, and that's worrisome to me, because they can definitely catch up here. And hopefully we are able to grab 2 out of 3 at least. But this offense is going to have to come out if we want to win on the versus Minnesota. And looking at the pitching matchups, I might tend to go towards Barrios in that 3rd game, but I like to give us some quality starts with Giolito. But I personally think they should take 2 out of 3 here. And then going into Detroit versus Detroit, what I've seen so far, I haven't seen any projected starters for Detroit yet for that first game. But if it lines up right now, we got Lance Lynn on Friday, and we'll see who they throw out there. Might be a bullpen game. Maybe they push up Peralta from Saturday to Friday possibly, but if they don't, it'd be Peralta and Keuchel, and then Sunday Giolito and Mies, the young Mies that they got, who's their top arm at the moment. Mies he's a guy in that last game of the series. I think that could be the game of the series with Giolito and Mies. Maybe they push up Skubal on Friday to face Lynn. That could happen.
Could be.
Because with our game getting rained out, we were supposed to see Cease twice with Giolito as well, but now we're just seeing Giolito twice. So this is going to be an interesting series, and I hopefully keep banging Detroit up. I know last week I said we would all, I know we all mentioned we would chug beers if they go 5-0, and we were feeling it, but that didn't happen. And hopefully they can close. Hopefully they can sweep Detroit. But we said that last week and that didn't happen. So let's just keep positivity and that they turn things around offensively, because once they turn things around offensively, we should be pretty A-okay with how the schedule is right now.
It's worth noting real quick, Vinny, is that it's supposed to pour the next 2 days. So we could potentially have 2 more rainouts on this list. But Vinny, I'll let you take it away.
I was going to say that as of the first rainout helped the Twins, because going into it, like I know the White Sox need an off day and that helps them in that sense, but I'm talking in terms of pure pitching matchups. They're not going to face Lance Lynn now. In this series, they'll face him again. But in this series, they're not going to face him. And they had a TBD. So we don't know what they were going to do on Thursday. Now we know it's going to be Giolito versus Barrios. I'm wondering if tomorrow's game gets canceled. Do the White Sox avoid Barrios? That would be work in their favor, I would say. Because then the other 2 guys, you would hope they can hit around a little bit. But, we don't know what they'll end up deciding if that's the case. I hope we do see Casey Mize, because the White Sox have tagged him up early in his career. He's been red hot lately, starting to look like that number 1 pitching prospect he was drafted to be. And I like when the White Sox face guys like that. I was excited when they faced Glasnow. I was excited when they faced Cole. It didn't go their way, but eventually it's going to start to go their way if they want to win the World Series. So I'm excited for all the pitching matchups here.
Could I add real quickly here with the batters here? We're going to see Cruz. He's a killer. He's batting 299, 17 home runs, 42 ribbies. Do you think this might be the first time we see Tony pitch around him with their key bat in that order, or how do you think we're going to go about him? And then also for Detroit, you got Chope, who's been killing us this year as well, 271, 15 home runs, 41 ribbies. He's also a guy that we'd love to see in the Sox if they were able to pull a division trade. But go ahead, I'll let you guys answer.
If I was Rocco Baldelli, I would bat Miguel Sano right after Cruz so that they don't intentionally walk him, because Miguel Sano literally owns the Chicago White Sox now. Like, he just dominates them so far this season. He single-handedly beat them in one of the games earlier this season. And Donaldson hasn't been doing too bad against the White Sox himself or in general. So that Twins lineup is scary. That's what makes it so hard to pitch around Cruz. So if I'm Rocco Baldelli, all of that is kept in mind, knowing that we're going to play the White Sox in Chicago.
Yeah, no doubt, man. It's interesting.
I have a little sticky note here, though, with a note. The Twins are 33-43. The Tigers are 34-44. And Baltimore's 24-54. That's a combined 91 and 141 record. That's the White Sox next 4 series. Big portion of the schedule coming up here. And the Indians play against the Rays and the Astros in that mix 14 times.
So what you're saying, Vinny, is that this is a great momentum boost that we could do to get into the All-Star break and kind of get that momentum back, and hopefully send those guys down in the standings, and we have a nice, potentially 8, maybe up to a 6 to 8 game lead going into the All-Star break. That would be ideal, right?
If they play their best baseball against the teams they should be beating over the next 2 weeks, they could go into the All-Star game with a pretty lead, something we're not used to as White Sox guys.
And we'll take it. And every game we get in the lead is more insurance for later on. That was the most basic thing I could have ever said out loud, but there it is. But it's true. Facts are facts, and there's no doubts about that. I'm a poet, and I didn't even know it. And that's the point of the show where you stop giving me alcohol. I'm rhyming like Dr. Seuss over here. All right. Well, anyway, let's get to our last segment of the show, which is our guaranteed take. We're going to talk about something that needs to be talked about. So let's get into it.
Yay!
Yeah, gentlemen, so let's talk about the All-Star vote. We had a couple players on the Sox make it through the next round. Yasmani Grandal, surprisingly one of those candidates, but you can't argue his on-base percentage. Gonzo, why don't you talk a little bit about some of the players that made it through and some of the players throughout the league that are currently running away with things?
Yeah, and even across the league, I'll mention a couple of guys that didn't make it that I'm kind of shocked at. But to go back to the White Sox here last week when we were talking about doing a ballot, with I think last Thursday is when they went to phase 2 of this. But originally we had 4 potential position players with the Sox that could have made, phase 2. And that is, Abreu at first. We had Timmy at shortstop. We had Moncada at third and Grandal for catching. So we had 4 possible position players that could have been representing the South Side. At the moment, good news is we have 3 out of the 4. I just went blank for a second, but Tim Anderson. Yeah, Tim Anderson left the shortstop selection, so they're top 3 right now. Timmy's not in it, and that's a little upsetting, but I understand because Timmy hasn't been putting up the numbers, and we can all say this is a popularity contest, but for the most part,
sure,
he wasn't putting the numbers up to even be in that popularity contest throughout the league, which is unfortunate because this is a guy that won a batting title, 19 and Silver Slugger was it last year? So, gosh, it's sad that you can't represent the South Side with those awards that he accomplished from the last 2 seasons, but he hasn't been putting those numbers up recently. So hopefully he does turn around and laughs at the fans for voting around the league that didn't put him in there. But at the moment, we still have Moncada that we can vote for, Abreu and Grandal for respective positions of first, third, and catcher. And out of those guys, we might just see with how the voting is right now. It looks like Grandal might be the only one that has a shot, really, because I think Devers is running away with it at third base, and Vlad Jr. is a Triple Crown candidate that's running away for the Blue Jays right now at first base.
Well, last I checked, I thought Perez had like a 1 million vote lead or something, or like it was pretty big. I have to go back and double check where we're standing. But
I was saying Grandal is your best shot out of those guys, and that's even less likely with what you're saying, which is true. But hopefully,
and it's worth saying that it's real quick. It's worth saying that's for a starting spot. Right. I mean, these guys are probably still going to make the team, not guaranteed, but that's for starting spot. So I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, no, I was going to let you clarify that a little bit further when you get around to it. But as far as starters go, like you're saying, yeah, those are our 3 options at the moment. And hopefully when it comes to the other teams for the pitching staffs, hopefully we're well represented with our pitching staff on the All-Star team, because you would think a division leader would have more representation on, in the All-Star game. But we'll find out. And as far as going around the league goes, Matt Olson not being represented is kind of bizarre, because he's a guy that has 20 home runs and he's doing well with the Oakland A's. So he's a guy that could have been easily replacing Gurriel or Abreu in the voting. And also a rookie who I brought up to you, Joe, I think I brought up to both of you when I was at the bar with you guys on Friday, but Jared Walsh, the rookie. Technically, he's first base / outfield, and I'm surprised he wasn't even in the outfield selection, because I think he would have made it in there. But it sucks with first baseman with all the options out there that he didn't make it. But Jared Walsh is a huge snub, I thought, to go with Olson out of the big names that I've seen. Because if you look at the All-Star projections with the outfielders, there's a lot of gray area there that you can make it, and it's just sad to see some of these snubs. But I'll let you guys break it away from here.
Yeah, so Vinny, who's your biggest snub, and whatever else you might want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, so I would say it's Tim Anderson, of course. I mean, the thing with Tim Anderson, I actually do believe he's popular, because anytime you see the MLB cut a promo about something, he's our guy. And he's been Chicago's guy on some of these promos. Like, they'll leave off a Cub and use Anderson. And, I think that's awesome. And, Chicago's got 2 great shortstops and 2 great catchers. Tim Anderson, it's a deep position. So if I had to pick one of those 4 guys that I thought was going to get left off, I actually probably would have guessed Anderson, because shortstop's so deep. Moncada's been amazing. Devers is probably going to be the starter, and it's well-deserved. Rafael Devers is amazing. First base, we'll see what happens. I'm not positive Yasmani can win it, but I do believe that all those guys could make the team, including Anderson.